It's insane what we can do with medical technology. It shouldn't even be possible. It's mind-blowing. And yet we can, and these heathens, these cavemen, want to take that away from us. F*** you. There was this person named Shapeshifter, and I've had a run-in with them before, whereby basically they invited me onto their stream to talk about puberty blockers and present my side of things without interruption from them, right? Shapeshifter is a detransitioner. They are a grifter for the conservatives. As far as I know, they recently converted to Christianity, which is always a good sign. And like at first, I was trying to be cordial with them, but lately more and more I've seen on Twitter, they're just really not coming in good faith. We got into it a little bit on Twitter again, and they tweeted at me to watch this video whereby Shapeshifter and this other person, the offensive T slur, go back and forth talking about, apparently, narcissistic trans activists. Now, the offensive T slur is a trans guy, and I'm just going to say the offensive T, and apparently another grifter, but we'll see what happens. They were convinced that this would sway me on something somehow, or at least that I should know of its existence, so that is what we are going to do right now, is react to this and give it a fair shake. But we're going to do it slightly faster speed because I don't want to waste too much time on it. And here we go.
Every single child or adolescent who is truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm.
It's just not worth it.
By the way, I believe that clip from that video is just false. This video of the Zoom call made a big round on anti-trans Twitter because of what this lady just said, which is that Tanner stage 2, if you block puberty before Tanner stage 2 or during Tanner stage 2, you never experience orgasm. That's false. There's no data that demonstrates that. So I don't know why she said that. As far as I know, Marcy Bowers is in fact a trans, like a pro-trans person. I think that was just misinformation on her part. I don't fault her for that. I do fault the people who have been passing this around, shilling it as misinformation to get people to side against transitioning care.
It's just not worth the risk having a higher voice or a smoother body over what to have a sexless life.
Hey everyone, we are in New York City. I'm sitting here with Shapeshifter, a detrans male, and we're going to react to some TikToks.
Can someone please explain to me why I'm getting videos of detransitioners all over my For You page now? Like, where are y'all coming from? And it's always like ex-trans masculine individuals who are coming out about being like detransitioning. Oh my god, I'm just so surprised that I have male pattern baldness. I thought I wouldn't get it even though my brother has it, and my dad has it, and my uncle has it. Like, please. Like, I'm glad you're happy, but be f***ing for real.
I mean, can they just stop picking on Casey Miller?
But where did y'all come from? Like he asked.
I don't know. It was just like, we just all had download from universe, I guess, and started transitioning.
As transitioning procedures become more and more normalized and more trans people come out, the unfortunate side effect of that is going to be more detrans people, proportional to the number of trans people we see, right? And I do hope, by the way, that the number of detrans people we have is very small. I want it to be small. Normal people want it to be small. And I do believe that detrans people matter. I believe that their needs matter. I believe their medical needs matter and their social needs matter. And I believe that they are a population of people that we should not and ought not ignore. So let that all be clear. That being said, and when I say truly detrans, I mean people who detransitioned as a result of making a honest to God mistake about their identity, right? They decided they're not trans, they want to be the gender they were born as, and they're detransitioning now. That sucks, man. That's gonna happen though. It's gonna happen. Is it medical misinfo? Person at the beginning, technically that's medical misinfo, but I don't know where they got that or why they said that, because that's just not true. The TikTok they just watched was about a guy being like, where are all these detrans people coming from and why are you saying this stuff? It's because it's a popular grift, okay? Detransitioners are hard to come by. And so when you are detrans and you use this grift, you can get really popular really fast because TERFs latch onto you like a fucking parasite.
We got this like collective upload.
I mean, it's so insensitive that he's offended that you exist. People like you exist.
Yeah,
what's that all about?
He didn't say that. Misrepresenting.
We need to validate their existence every day almost. Yeah, for sure. I mean, every week, he's right though, because every week there's new transitioners, and I think people just realizing that maybe a transition didn't help them as much as they thought it would. And that's why we have this huge wave of transitioners, and some of them have health issues that push them into transition. Yeah. And some of them are trenders as well. We're not going to name certain people. Some people, identify as certain things because it's a trend.
And he can't even show his face. It's like he's on his bed, casually.
Lots of source question mark. Oh, TERFs never have good sources. TERFs, like their source is like r/d-trans. That's it. That's also not true. Which part are you saying is not true?
And some of them are.
Some of them have health issues that push them into the transition. Well, it's very vague. So I can't even say, well, the trend part is not true. That is a factual statement. I can't even say that what this person is saying is false necessarily, as far as like have medical issues that push them into transition. That's very vague, and that's on purpose, because I can't say that it's wrong or unfactual. Of course, there's medical conditions that push them to transition. That's the fucking point of being trans. Like, being trans in and of itself is not a medical condition, but if you have body dysphoria, that is. And so the best route we found to rectify that is to give you the body that aligns with, whatever parts that you happen to be dysphoric about, right? It's body positivity. It's reaching your body standards, the body that you want for yourself. And I think that's good.
Not to name certain people. Some people, identify as certain things because it's a trend.
And he can't even show
I did
his
not
face.
see that
It's
part.
He's on his bed, casually dissing D-trans people. It's very immature, don't you think?
Yeah.
It's a TikTok. Yeah, he's on his bed.
AC has been sterilized, and she's gotten so much hate. I don't know what to say about this. I feel really bad. She never was unhappy with her look. She just said that she was...
By the way, the person, they told me when I spoke to them personally to say they, them, that Shapeshifter is referring to a she, her, still goes by he, him. This person right here still identifies as a trans male. Okay, and still goes by he, him, just so you all know.
She never was unhappy with her look. She just said that she was considering detransitioning, and it's hard once you've gone so far with testosterone. She never said she wanted a certain look when she started testosterone.
It's not like I have a problem with people detransitioning. The problem that I have is the misinformation that is spread by the people who are detransitioning. The way that so many people who detransition spin it as though transitioning ruined their lives somehow, as if somebody forced them to transition.
What do you think about that?
Well, it has ruined lives. People are missing body parts. People will never be able to have children. I'm missing body part. We will never get back our original bodies. And a lot of times...
That's a fair point to make if you did, in fact, have an honest-to-God mistake about what you wanted for your body. That's fair. But I think the key word there is that you were forced into it. We've discussed this before. I think there are coercive methods, especially as in regards to the way the U.S. healthcare system works, that make you feel like you're rushed into things, right? My thing is, like, when I talked to Shapeshifter, they said that they had genital surgery at 24 years old. 24. And they said that that was too young to decide. I'm like, no, it's not. 24 is not even close to too young. You're talking like, you say like 18, 19, I can see where you're coming from, whatever. But you say 24, you're going to give me a serious face, a serious look and tell me that 24 is too young to make that kind of decision. I'm sorry, you lost me. You lost the plot. And yeah, I'm sorry. It sucks that happened. It was an honest to God mistake. I wish that you had not gone through that, but that's not the typical experience of 99% and more of trans people. How is 24 too young? Because apparently they also included that they had mental health conditions. But the problem is that those mental health conditions also coincide with being trans. So like it's hard to untangle what's causing what sometimes. And in most circumstances, in 99% of circumstances, if you are deemed to be trans, it's thought that the dysphoria is what's causing the depression and the anxiety and other health issues, mental health issues, and not the other way around. It's very, very rarely the other way around. And I want to say almost never, but I don't want to give a false impression because I'm sure it does happen, but it's exceedingly rare.
We were kind of we did sign off on certain things, but we do have kids detransitioners that were trans kids, so their parents kind of also saw it that if they don't allow their kids to transition, they'll commit suicide. So in a way, that is kind of manipulation into transition. Because I also was convinced that if I don't transition...
So that's not manipulation, that's just fact. If you don't allow children to socially and then eventually medically transition as per medical guidelines, that's just factual. Many of them will commit suicide because of that's just the statistics that we have. Because of the mental stigma, usually social stigma, and also body dysphoria that comes from being a trans person who's not affirmed. That's why we say that. It's not to manipulate, it's just fact.
Made to believe that it will better my life and my mental health, and it didn't. I think it's spreading misinformation, saying that puberty blockers are safe.
And when he's saying that, you guys are saying, well,
puberty blockers are safe. I literally did a whole ass presentation with Shapeshifter about why, hello Shapeshifter's looking right at me, about why puberty blockers are safe, and they just seemingly tuned the whole thing out.
You guys mean it's like the trans doctors are lying to you. That's what you're trying to say.
Yeah, they're not telling us all the probabilities of things going wrong, even the whole like side effects of testosterone. Every year they're adding like new things to the consent list.
Incorrect. You can go on any medical website and they will tell you the side effects of the potential side effects of testosterone injections, so a testosterone supplement.
So it's like people who started testosterone a few years ago should have been already aware of all the side effects that are just coming out now. And same with puberty blockers. FDA just issued new warnings about puberty blockers. What about the kids that started already a few
Where
years
are these
ago?
new warnings at? I have not seen these new warnings.
I think this is just a tip of iceberg what we're seeing with detransitioners, and once the kids have been blocked earlier come out as detrans, that would be really actually sad. And
here's another thing. They keep referring to kids that will eventually come out as detrans. And then what's eventually inevitably going to happen is a few of them will. They're going to. Like I said, the more trans people are affirmed and accepted, the more of them are going to come out as detrans. Proportionally, that's just how that works. It's inevitable. And so they're going to use that and say, look, we were right. We were right all along. Look at all these new detrans people. That was going to happen, dude. It was going to happen. There's no way around it. You know, mistakes happen. And we cannot let those mistakes get in the way of the care that is going to improve the lives of magnitudes more people. It just does not make sense. It doesn't work that way. That's like saying we should ban seatbelts because like whatever minuscule percent of people who were in car accidents got decapitated by them, which is something that has happened, by the way. People have been decapitated by wearing their seatbelt properly. That's happened. Doesn't happen often, but it does. I'm not going to say rip the seatbelt out of the car because a few people got decapitated. Sucks that happened. We should improve seatbelts. We should make it so fewer people get decapitated. And we did, by the way. It's about improving the standard of care, not ditching it. Do not throw the baby out with the bathwater.
yeah,
Blaming hormones and surgeries and all of these things on why you were in such an unhappy place. But the elephant in the room, what really matters is you were never actually trans.
So what do you think about that?
nobody can define anymore what woman is, what is trans woman. Like, we lost all definition. Nothing means anymore. Please tell
Yeah, based. What is a woman? Who knows? Who cares?
me what is true trans, and can we use those definitions to start gatekeeping? Because I hate seeing detransitioners.
So a big thing for me is like, oh, we lost the definition of trans. We lost, if you don't know, if you can't define a woman, how do you define a trans woman? Okay, fair enough. You're right. Here's the thing. I don't give a shit about labels unless it's labeling people as they would like to be labeled. Okay. Other than that, all I care about is outcomes. I tell people this all the time. I am outcome oriented. You're non-binary. You're an NB. Great. Good for you. You're trans, femme, vampire, whatever. Fine. Whatever. You want to go by it, it's, they, them, she, her, vampire self. I don't care. What I care about is that you are living your best life with the maximum quality of life that we can afford you with our technology and in our society. That's what I care about. Labels come later. Labels come secondary to that. So call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's literally just about having the freedom to do whatever the fuck you want with your own body with the limited amount of time on this earth that you have.
But they also say, like, oh, you were never trans, so I don't care about you. I only care about trans people. And now you're leaving our community. It means that you were never
Woman
part
is
of
a state of mind in some ways.
Yeah, it's expanded umbrella too big, and now anybody can fall under that umbrella. And it would have not been a problem if it was just about fashion and makeup, but it's actual medical procedures that could be dangerous.
Irreversible.
Yeah, irreversible too. So.
Yeah.
Okay, so common misconception. Once you start getting to things like testosterone therapy and estrogen therapy, and then also the surgeries, obviously those are irreversible in most cases, and hopefully we find ways to be able to reverse that. Honestly, you know, they're currently irreversible. Puberty blockers are not, okay? Puberty blockers are in fact reversible. The only things that are not irreversible are the stunted growth, like the stunted height, which I can live with, and the potential for bone density loss, which I can deal with, okay? And which doctors have decided is a practical risk to take. You know, it just makes sense. Because what's the alternative? You risk suicide. Straight up. A woman is someone who's typically identifies with cultural ideas that are generally seen as feminine. Yeah, it's a good way of putting it.
And this is the guy who gave birth twice, I just want to say. A trans man giving birth twice. I don't know if it's relevant, but I just want to say because I remember his TikToks.
Good for him.
But we don't need a thesis.
It's not relevant, but
and
Pog.
a mini docuseries as to why you decided to detransition. Just go about your life.
I mean, trans people always had docuseries. Ever since the beginnings, it's been promoted all over social media, on mainstream media. So we should just like chuck away our experiences.
Right.
We're literally exposing ourselves so other people can learn from it and make better decisions.
Okay, so this is disingenuous. If you were actually trying to just share your personal experience and make things better for everybody, you would actually look at the objective data and not just rely on r/dtrans for all of your information. Literally, I never see these people provide a good source, a solid source of information about real statistics. The only real statistic I've seen from them is, and I don't even know if it's true, by the way, a 4,000% increase in trans children. But even assuming that's true, let's say it is. Let's give them that. Let's say a 4,000% increase in trans children. Oh my God, oh Jeezums, oh Lordy. What are we going to do about it? Treat them like freaking people. Treat them like humans. Treat them like we would treat any trans person or suspected trans person. Let them try to socially transition. If that works out, let them try the puberty blockers. If that works out, get them on the hormone therapy. And then if they would like to do the surgeries, which many don't, let them do that when they're of age. There is a procedure for this. There is a step A, step B, step C that is, to the best of our ability, designed to maximize good outcomes. There's no reason for, like, even if 90% of all children came out as trans tomorrow, the same procedure would work. It would still work. So even if you lend them that statistic, they cannot fall back on it as their only argument. They simply can't. That's not what they're trying to say. They're saying these detransition documentaries are made to push the narrative that detransitioners are this huge problem. Oh, I mean, I don't know anything about that. I'm not going to sit here and say that like detransition documentaries aren't, pushing this idea that like detransitioners are the problem. And if they are doing that, that's harmful. I disagree with that. Like I said, detransitioners do matter. I care about their feelings. I care about their outcomes just as much as trans people. They're just as important. The problem is there's far, far, far fewer of them. And so to modify the entire procedure for the sake of like less than 1% of people who this fails, like genuinely fails with, is silly. We can't do that.
I'm not saying nobody should ever transition. We just don't want it pushed on kids. And we're trying to warn other people that it's not all sunshine and rainbows like media has been portraying it. You don't just go off into the sunset. It may or may not happen. So.
Yeah, I think this is cult-like behavior. Oh, you were never a part of
our cult. We're the cult-like
people. I don't care about you.
People.
Don't spread your ideology. Don't spread your lies about our community. And don't ever speak on anything. That's very cult-like, I would say.
Damn well that you telling your story is the fuel that people use to invalidate us as trans people.
That's such a bad way to put it. I'm sorry. I know that this person probably does not understand how this sounds, but this sounds terrible because it is terrible. Detransitioners should absolutely talk about their experiences. 1,000%. 1,000%. Their experiences matter. Okay. So I do disagree with this guy on this point.
Please stop.
Well, we need some kind of fuel. No, unfortunately, nobody's supporting us except for the right-wing media, some base transsexuals, and people who just have compassion. Unfortunately, we do have supporters that are like very religious, but we need some kind of support. Like these people have been through hell, literally. Some of us have a lot of medical trauma due to medical transition. We need support. They just want us to go away, but they just can no longer ignore us because numbers of detransitioners are growing because there were no safeguards.
Again, no, it's not because there's no safeguards. It's because the number of trans people total is growing. The number of people going through these procedures, period, is growing. Therefore, the number of detransitioners are going to proportionally grow with it.
And this is the result. This is what you get. If anybody can be trans, this is what you get.
Yeah, and you're only responsible for what you say. So, okay, some transphobic people, they would use your story and say, well, no one should transition. So what? You're telling your story.
As if the left is not using the whole transition.
Okay, but they're literally doing that because they're literally sitting here saying, well, because there's so many detransitioners, we need to stop transitioning children. And that's just not the takeaway. Okay? They're being dishonest.
A lot of those are just cis people. They don't really care. They just want to use trans people for woke points. Like, hello.
Exactly.
There's governors that are advocating for puberty blockers that never had trans experience, that never had trans kids in their family. They're just
okay. There were also governors that were way back in the day that advocated for freeing slaves. I can guarantee you that none of them were slaves. And yet they decided that maybe it'd be a good idea to free slaves. Because it's not about whether or not you're trans or had that experience. It's about what does the objective data tell us? It does not matter one single fucking bit that I'm a cis as fuck dude. It does not matter because the data shows that these transitioning procedures we currently have in place are the best ones that will yield the best outcomes.
Just doing it because that's just a bundle that comes with like left. And it's time it got unbundled.
So this is Marcy Bowers, who's a trans surgeon. Like she's a trans woman doing trans surgeries.
Yeah. President of WPAS.
Oh yeah, that's true. And this is a clip from What is a Woman?
The youngest patient I've done vaginoplasty on is age 16.
Do you worry that minors just don't understand enough about themselves? They're not neurologically developed enough yet to make permanent life-altering decisions?
Absolutely not.
Is she okay?
Is she okay?
It takes time to discover who you are. Like, I had my surgery at 24, I had vaginoplasty, I had so many
Here's my personal take on vaginoplasty before the age of 18. First of all, I want to preface this by saying I haven't studied this in depth. Second of all, I want to say it probably is a little young, right? In the vast majority of cases, I think we can all agree that might be a little bit young for vaginoplasty, right? But again, I'm not the doctor in the room. I'm not the person getting the procedure, and I'm certainly not their fucking parents. If all those parties agree to this procedure and have been explained what the risks are, I have no right to step in. I simply don't have that right. And I don't think the government should have the right either. Okay? Because I trust the medical experts more than I trust the government to make this decision. Only one of those groups of people have had the training necessary to be able to make that decision. Okay? So while I don't think that 16 should be the standard, if that is what's decided to be what's best for this person based on all the available evidence, I have no reason to argue against it. I don't. And I have no right to. Liberation of trans youth, queer love, land back, abolition, detrans, non-binary woman. I do know this person. I am following this person. So this is not the person I was talking about, but this is still a based person. So this is a good example, okay? I just wanted an example of a detrans person. So detrans, non-binary, okay? She identifies as a woman now, she, her, cool stuff. It's okay to regret gender-affirming care and to find it no longer affirming. My regret is not because of any lack of forethought or a mistake. Besides, I thought gender and identity were/have the capacity to be fluid. There you go. That's all it takes. That's all it takes is to recognize that, what your situation is extraordinarily unfortunate, and that doesn't mean that you have the right to speak out against other people's experiences and their care. The conservatives are literally doing the myth of consent where Jesus is just saying, I don't consent, but it's Matt Walsh. Yeah. We give Ritalin to 3-year-olds because they were too hyper, turning them into zombies and damaging their development. Still legal. Why aren't they talking about that harming minors? I mean, I always say this, right? It's very interesting because I'll bring up circumcision a lot and then they'll always backtrack. They won't backtrack, but they'll be like, oh, I disagree with circumcision too, right? Either that or they'll just straight up agree with circumcision and try to defend it. But for the ones who are like, well, I also disagree with circumcision, it's like that's genital mutilation on a literal newborn child. So it's interesting to me that your main issue is trans people and their procedures. It seems a bit inconsistent. It's a little inconsistent. I think that's fair to point out. If we're going in terms of how old they are, how much they understand what's going on, what damage it's doing to them. I got my Skittle pouch cut off when I was a wee newborn, and now I can't hold no Skittles, I guess I can hold it in my hand, but then my hands get all moist and the colors wear off into my skin. That's what that Skittle pouch was there for. And now it's just gone. I'll never get that back. So, I think that people need to really, I'm sorry, but critically, to be serious, right? On a serious note, critically analyze that, right? Pin them down on that. Just be like, why is it that trans issues came up, even though circumcision's been this long running thing that we're just all seemingly okay with? But this is where you draw the line, though. Weird, but okay.
Complications and completely regret it. How the hell somebody who's almost 16 so early in their timeline can make such a lifelong decision when they haven't even existed or dated, haven't discovered their body? And I'm assuming that person was blocked from puberty. I don't even know what orgasm is. Marcy Bowers already put out a statement that the boys that have been blocked out, they never had a drop of testosterone in their bodies, so they'll never know what it's like to have orgasm.
I don't think that's true, by the way. I know I said this at the beginning, but this whole thing about not having testosterone means you don't orgasm is just simply not true. Testosterone can affect orgasms and their intensity and their quality, but it does not determine whether or not you simply can have one. There are kids who, I don't know the exact data on it, but I know personally anecdotes, right? Some people who have claimed to have orgasms before puberty. It can happen. So, this is just a false point.
And was an observation that I had that every single child or adolescent who was truly blocked at Tanner stage 2 has never experienced orgasm.
And probably will never.
So testosterone's only lower in women? I know that.
They transition by taking testosterone. And we already know Jazz Jennings. I mean, that person is struggling. Jazz is really struggling from what I can see.
Yeah, and Marcy.
Yeah, but that's not because of puberty blockers. That's because of hormone therapy, which can affect your orgasm potential. Okay, that can. And that's one of the risks that your doctor goes over with you. It's simply a risk that has to be taken into consideration. It sucks, but that's where we're at. And hopefully with more research and allowing doctors to do these things, right? Allowing them to look into this stuff freely without government interference, we will learn better ways of doing this so that people's ability to orgasm are reserved if they want them to be. You know, like again, I'm outcome oriented. Just because somebody loses their ability to orgasm does not necessarily mean that their life is worse off. Sometimes they're prioritizing other traits over that. And that's fine. You know, this weird obsession with like not being able to orgasm is just that. It's weird. Not everybody prioritizes that. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to break the news to you. If all women have testosterone, does that mean all women are trans? Something like that.
Bowers operated on jazz. Yeah.
And also a friend of mine as well.
I mean, 16.
That's
They can't
very
even legally drink in the United States, but they can consent to a vaginoplasty. I think it's abuse.
They can also go join the military, but we won't talk about that.
Honestly.
Abuse and should not be promoted this way.
Yeah, what do you think the age limit should be when it comes to like bottom surgery only?
I think 25. There's some data showing that your brain is not fully developed, especially in biological males. It takes longer for a brain to develop. Like again, I had at 24, I thought I knew everything, what I wanted, and I wasn't really even conscious till I was like late 20s, early 30s. It should be 25 for genital surgery.
Wait, did she say, wait, hold on. Or they, sorry.
I wasn't really even conscious till I was like late 20s.
Do you think the age limit should be when it comes to like bottom surgery only?
I think 25. There's some data showing
25 is entirely too old, okay? And if they were serious about this point, their first concern would be alcohol, okay? They would be wanting to raise the age of alcohol consumption, which you can make a fair argument that it should be 25. That's fair. You can make a fair argument for that. If they were consistent in their worldview, they would be advocating for that first, because alcohol is straight poison, I say as I drink a can of it. It's straight poison. It's not good for you. It does nothing for you except make you sick and a little bit dizzy for a little while. But other than that, it literally just kills you. So what's the deal?
Again, I had at 24, I thought I knew everything, what I wanted, and I wasn't really even conscious till I was like...
So they said, that's what I thought. They said they weren't even conscious at 24. What is the difference of 1 year going to make in that regard? Really, between 24 and 25, I'm sorry, there's just not that big of a difference. I know technically your brain is still developing at 24, technically, but there's just not that much of a difference. There's really not. Like, I'm sorry. That's silly. That's very silly. Don't forget military age of 18-year-olds shouldn't drink, smoke, or transition. Why should they be in the military? I mentioned that. 25, you can drive, drink, alcohol, smoke, drive, vote by the age of 21. Yeah, that's what we were saying. If they were really serious about this point, they would have brought up alcohol first. They'd be fighting against alcohol for people under the age of 25. But they're not serious about this point. They're grifters.
Late 20s, early 30s. It should be 25 for genital surgeries, and there's really no data showing that genital surgeries improve mental health in the long run. There's really a big question mark over genital surgeries in general. And
wait. There is data showing that. No. That's a lie. No, genital surgery for trans people does in fact improve their mental health outcomes. That's why we do them.
Should not be allowed under 18. Or sacrificing your health for aesthetics. That's where I'm at.
Okay, hormones should be given at the age of 16. By the age of 16, you are pretty much well decided enough on your gender identity to be able to make that decision consciously. I'm sorry. Like that's by 16, yeah, you've pretty much figured it out. The vast majority of trans people have figured it out by that point, and you can start a hormone transition. I would personally advocate for staying on puberty blockers longer if they did not cause, they haven't been shown to cause significant damage past the point of 4 years. It's not anything that would kill you, but it does impact your bone density enough that doctors are like, yeah, maybe no more puberty blockers after 4 years. 4 years is a very safe limit, okay? Once you start getting past the 4-year mark, you start having a little bit more effects, noticeable effects. So they say 4 years from 12 to 16, that's about the time we do it. And that's fair. That's a fair compromise, okay? It's not a perfect science, and it never will be. But the more that we allow this to happen, the more that we allow the doctors to do their work and their research, the better we're going to get at this.
What's the point if you're going to look beautiful if you can't have sex?
Right. Yeah, and you can mess your body up.
Wait, what's the point of looking? I know I keep pausing. I'm sorry, but like every single point is just garbage. What do you mean? What's the point of looking beautiful if you can't have sex? What are you talking about? Have you ever seen asexual people, like ace people that like, not necessarily but asexual people who like just don't like sex at all? They're sex repulsed. They love looking beautiful. A lot of them, not all of them. But like, what do you mean? That's such a dumb point to make. Sometimes you just love looking beautiful. Hello?
Without knowing because you're too young.
Yeah, it's like it's just not worth the risk having a higher voice or a smoother body.
Such a weird worldview.
A sexless life.
Yeah, rather the person is fully developed and then they can do, there's a lot of things you can do. We live in a modern society, so why not
we do live in a society.
Because there's no going back if you never go through your own natal puberty.
Yeah.
Okay, you don't wait until you're fully developed because you're fully developed. It's too late. It's too late. The permanent effects of testosterone and estrogen have already taken they've already run their course, man. Like what do you mean? You can't wait until you're an adult. What, you want to start puberty blockers at 18? It's over. It's over.
So you'll be having micropenis. They'll have as much tissue to work with either. So that have to harvest from other parts of your body.
So this one is another good point, and that is something that has to be taken into consideration. And it is something that the doctors do talk about. But the outcomes for pubertal blockers have been shown to be effective enough that they're willing to take that, that they're willing to take that setback. Another part of that is we're moving away from using the penile tissue alone for vaginoplasty, and we're moving toward using colon tissue, which is really cool because colon tissue is actually closer in feeling and in function to vaginal tissue than the penile tissue is. Isn't that interesting? They'll like take a piece of your colon or your large intestine and they'll craft a vagina out of that, and it feels more like a vagina. It is interesting. Yeah. I can't remember what the exact name of the procedure is called, but sex reassignment surgery with colon graft technique, different types of vaginoplasty. Intestinal vaginoplasty uses a section of the sigmoid colon to create the neovagina. So it's called intestinal or sigmoid vaginoplasty. But yeah, it's incredible. It's absolutely, like, it's a miracle, dude. I will never get over sometimes the fact that we can even do any of this. It's insane what we can do with medical technology. It shouldn't even be possible. It's mind-blowing. And yet we can, and these heathens, these cavemen, want to take that away from us. Fuck you. Like, straight up.
Which is
living in the goddamn future, dude.
Doctors at these children's hospitals, they'll tell the parents, you have two choices. You could have a dead kid or a trans kid. This is brutal. There's no one reason anyone ever kills themselves, but they're using that as an argument. Because statistically, that is likely. Remember, the transphobes love throwing that number at us, right? 41%. They love that. It's only 41% because you don't affirm your kids. Suicide's complicated, and we should never be weaponizing it like that. If an anorexic is suicidal, we don't say, okay, sweetie, yes, you're fat, let's do some liposuction. We treat the underlying conditions that are leading this person towards suicidal ideation. Because anorexia is a dangerous condition that can lead to you dying, okay? I hate this conflation so much. Like, the best outcome for people who are anorexic is therapy and is feeding them. Obviously, we don't give them liposuction. There's nothing to fucking take usually when people are anorexic. I know there's like fat anorexic people, but in the traditional sense of anorexia, where it's like the person has been anorexic for a while and is skinny. Yeah, the best method for them is therapy because they're living, they literally are delusional. They look at their body and they see fat tissue that's there. Trans people are typically not delusional. They don't look at their body and see things that are not there. They see exactly what's there and they don't want it to be there. Okay? The best outcomes have been shown when we, either put things that aren't there that they want to be there, or we take things away that they don't want to be there and go from there. But this is the one condition in the whole world where we let a child self-diagnose themselves as being the opposite sex and just go along. It's not self-diagnosis, it's diagnosed by professionals. Whatever they want. What's the point of these endocrinologists going to school for 8 years to become a specialist doctor when they just listen to a 10-year-old that walks into their office? That's a billboard. That's what psychology and psychiatry is. You have to listen to them. You have to listen to what they have to say. You have to listen to a 10-year-old talk in order to know what's wrong with them. You have to. Like that. There's no like trans gene. There's no depression gene. There's no like gene. I should say there's no trans indicator, right? There's no trans molecule that we can test. There's no trans or ADHD molecule that we can test. There's no depression molecule that we can test. We can't test for, your depression levels are this high. No, we have to go off of subjective data. That's a literal thing that we have to do. Same with pain levels. We have to go off of subjective data. But people have no problem giving pain meds, right? No problem. And neither do I. Pain meds are great when we need them. But that's totally subjective. We have no way of knowing how much pain somebody else is in. Zero. Except for what they tell us. And yet we're totally fine going off of subjective data for that and somehow not for this. Tell me how that makes sense.
Chris, he's pretty popular Twitter personality. Yeah, he's absolutely right. I mean, this is the only healthcare where people get to decide for themselves how far they want to take their transition.
Wrong. Pain management literally has people deciding for themselves how much pain they're in and how much medication they need. Literal pumps of pain medicine that people can just self-administer is available in hospitals when people are in serious pain. So stop with this bullshit.
And the minute I decided I wanted vaginoplasty, like there was nothing to protect me from that decision or pushback. So that's very dangerous because again, kids want a lot of different things, and
at the tender young age of 24,
have not been addressed. And in a way, sometimes medical transition works as a placebo for a while, but those mental health issues keep on resurfacing, and eventually people have to deal with it. And at this point,
medical transition is not a placebo for those issues. They're not a cure-all, but they're certainly not a placebo. That's inaccurate.
Any child that comes with gender issues has to.
I see what you're saying, Guitar Rocket. That makes more sense.
Psychological evaluation before given any kind of medical treatment, even young adults.
Yeah,
so, like,
for real.
They should really be checked for childhood trauma, for borderline, for all those things. But unfortunately, right now the narrative is like all those things are separate from being trans. And oftentimes people.
I mean, even if they are separate, if it's determined that transitioning. First of all, this is going off of a false narrative that like being trans comes at, and this is a very popular narrative that we used to use for gay people all the time and still do sometimes, that being trans comes from trauma, right? Let's say that even that's true. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt and say that like anybody who's trans, 100% of the people who are trans were traumatized, right? Let's give them that. Okay, guess what? That doesn't change the medical procedure necessary to help these people to the best of our ability. That doesn't change anything. All that means is that, oh, okay, well, they're trans because they were traumatized, but that doesn't change how we deal with it at all. Because it's still shown by the data that transitioning helps these people more than just therapy and medication. Okay? The medication and the therapy will certainly help, but you cannot therapy somebody out of being trans. You can't do it. That's called conversion therapy, my friend, and that is torture.
People whose years not working on those issues because they keep on putting all the efforts and resources into medical transition to look a certain way to pass, versus working on their mental issues and becoming like maybe better, And also,
famously, trans people never talk about mental issues and ways that they can become mentally better.
Suicidal ideations, a lot of us have it, unless you've had like specific incidences where you attempted it and there's record of it.
A lot of people do. Well, unless they're saying a lot of us have it, where they're talking about like people who identified as trans. Fine. Yes, that is true. But in case they meant a lot of us have it, suicidal ideation is not something normal to have. If you're having that, that is not normal. And it's not something a lot of people have. I don't think that's what they meant. I won't assume that's what they meant, but just to clarify.
You can't tell that like, oh, it saved your life, So we should really redefine what suicidality is to better treat like patients with gender dysphoria.
Redefine suicidality? No, suicidality is pretty straightforward. Actually, no, that one's pretty straightforward. I think we'll keep that one. I think we'll leave that one the way it is. I like the definition for that one. Yeah, I think we'll leave that one alone.
Yeah, and Casey Miller, speaking of her, she got top surgery a month after being suicidal. Like that was in the papers.
Yes.
So I can't believe they're doing that to young people.
It was the same with me. I was very suicidal after going on estrogen, and I thought like, oh, I was in the wrong body, so I need to transition as a way to feel better. And unfortunately, it's not always the case that it helps.
Right.
So we have to be very careful because you can't get back your body parts once you lost it. You can't just go shopping for body parts.
No.
I just don't buy that this person, I'm sorry, like the more I listen to Shapeshifter, the less genuine I feel like they are. I don't buy that Shapeshifter was like depressed and anxious, and then they decided, oh, I need to trans myself. I need to do the trans. Even giving them the benefit of the doubt that did happen, that's not typically how it goes, ever, at all. Like, you had some very sussy doctors, and you should probably sue. By the way, trans people are still 0.2% of the population. Not one of these people are doctors or medical scientists. Oh, yeah. I don't know what the point of bringing that percentage up was. Just like to demonstrate that it's still like a really small amount, and it's like not. They're 5% of young adults. Which we're going to see an increase, and then they're going to like, we've seen this over and over. It's the whole left-handed chart, right? We'll pull it up again just for funsies. The famous left-handedness chart, starting from 1880, when it was pretty okay to be left-handed, going to 1900, 1905-ish, when it was at an all-time low, because we decided that people who were left-handed were possessed by the devil, and we had to beat the devil out of them with, whips and sticks and stuff. And then we decided, okay, well, maybe it's not the devil that's inside of them. Maybe some people are just left-handed. And then you see like, oh, look at this. More and more people are left-handed than we thought. Wow. Isn't that crazy that like when you don't beat people senseless, they're fine with being who they are, and they're willing to admit that they are left-handed when we don't beat them for being left-handed? That's crazy. That's wild. That's pretty wild. So yeah, we will see a rise in the population of trans people, and that's fine, and that's expected. Don't let them fool you into thinking that like this 4,000% or whatever is like weird, which I don't even think that's an accurate number, by the way. But It doesn't even matter. It literally doesn't. If it is 4,000, great, Pog. I'm all on board with there being a 4,000% increase in trans people because trans people are cool and there should be more of you people.
Oh, not at all. Do you think that like they overlook all the other mental health issues, the therapists and doctors?
Absolutely, because I've seen online when people say, oh, therapists push back a little bit, people tell them to go get another therapist because the therapist is transphobic. So like therapists cannot even try to help those people without being labeled transphobic or being
wow, I can't believe findchristnow.com was a transphobic therapist, man. I can't believe Jesus is the way detransition.net is a transphobic organization. That's crazy, man. Wow, who would have thought?
Accused of practicing conversion therapy.
Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
It's really scary. This is actually like an emergency. Like we need as a society to get this together before more people get hurt.
Now, right now.
Yeah, if you care for trans people, from what I've understood by now, I don't think bottom surgery solves a lot of issues, even trans people. So people should be notified of this to take care with their body modification surgery.
Yeah, and also many trans people don't get bottom surgery because they know it's not worth the risk. And also with puberty blockers.
Many people don't get bottom surgery because they are fine with their genitals. Guess what? I have news for you. You can be a woman with a dick and be perfectly fine and comfortable with that. Isn't that wild? Wow, what a concept. You can just be a trans woman with a dick and ball, a big swinging dick and balls that reach to the ground. Bigger dick than any man that ever lived. And you can be totally secure in yourself and totally happy. And I think that's fantastic. I think that's pog as fuck. I think that is worth celebrating. So what? No, they don't avoid it because it's not worth the risk. I'm sure that does happen, but sometimes people are just happy with the tools they've been given, okay? In some areas. Tripod trans. It's a good thing you've been in the chat or else. That is funny. I can't come up with trans lingo, but that is funny if that is something that they're fine with.
And hormones to teenagers and kids, it's like, well, yeah, you stand there as a trans adult, maybe a celebrity. I think of Laverne Cox, and you haven't gone through that. So why are you advocating for it? Like, do you even know the risks?
Right, they never had it.
I can't believe these people have never had cancer and yet they're advocating for chemotherapy. That's wild. Wow, you've never gone through chemo, through cancer treatments, chemo, and you're just fine with like advocating for chemo. Wow, how horrible of you.
Trans kid experience, they've never been blocked. I think 80% of trans people, they're never planning to get bottom surgery, and some of them don't even take hormones, but they're carrying the labels, they've changed their paperwork. They fight to make sure it's available to anybody who wants it as easily as possible. And that's completely insane and dangerous, very dangerous.
Yeah, we need to do something about it right now.
Yes, like it's actually an emergency. All the Western countries need to get it together on the trans issues. To
be clear, my opinion on this is that there should be a small wait period between the time that you say you want genital surgery and the time that you actually get it. But it should not be years, okay? It should not be years. That's ridiculous. It should be like a month, maybe 2 months. Like, just give it some time, think it over, assuming that you haven't been on this path your whole life, at least. If you just show up to the doc one day and you're like, hey, I've had this dick and balls my whole life, I kind of want a vag now. And the doctor kind of gives you a side eye, not a side eye, a head tilt. Yeah, I think that's a fair head tilt to give. Maybe wait a month, 2 months, think it over, get some educational material on it, and then we'll talk. And if after a month or 2 months you decide you still want it, and you're educated on it, and you've signed off on it, that's your fucking body and that's your choice. That's totally fine and dandy with me. I just don't understand the issue. People need the ability to self-determine, and all these people want is a fucking nanny state. I hate this. I did the math, and 4,000 times 0.2% is 40% something is sus. Yeah, no. See, something is definitely off. 40 fucking % of the population being trans. Okay.
Politics, religion should not be involved in this. Just examine data that we have. If you really care about trans people, analyze the data that we have.
Yeah, and care about people in general.
We do that.
People, because what is that? But just anyone with mental health issues. And I'm sorry, but it is a mental health issue. If you feel like you're trapped in the wrong body.
It's a mental health issue to have gender dysphoria. That is a mental health issue. But it's also a physical health issue because your mind and your body are incongruent with one another. Your mind looks at your body and wants it to be something else. And it's fine to want to change that. It's fine to have a drive to change that and make it into something else. And again, that's just your God-given right to do whatever you want with it. Why do you want to stop people from doing this stuff? It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
And no matter if that's the case or not, if you're dealing with something else, we should care and do something about it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much. Where can people find you?
I'm on YouTube, Shapeshifter, and on Twitter, Shifter of Shape. Thank you so much.
Awesome, thank you.
Well, there you go. So like I said, I've had a run-in with Shapeshifter before. I was cordial enough the last time that I was on Shapeshifter's YouTube channel. They let me come on, to be fair, right? To give them the most that I can. They let me come on and speak unfiltered about puberty blockers, right? To their credit, they let me do exactly what they said they would do. And I gave basically a dissertation on puberty blockers and why they're safe and why we should support people who take them and why we should support giving them to minors. Ever since then, I was respectful towards Shapeshifter during that conversation and even sometime after. And ever since then, I've just seen Shapeshifter like go down this horrible roller coaster of, not roller coaster, like a downward spiral of like getting worse and worse and worse, at least from what I've seen, with their anti-trans rhetoric. And I'm just done with it. They're lying, they're ignoring data, and they keep talking to grifters. And I'm just done with it. At this point, you are bad faith. You've probably always been bad faith, but you at least had me fooled for a while. And I'm not putting up with it anymore. So fuck you, Shapeshifter. Like, seriously. I don't like this, okay? And if Shapeshifter does happen to see this, since they wanted me to watch this video in the first place, if you do happen to see this, fuck you, first of all. Second of all, if you want to come on and talk about it, my DMs on Twitter are always open. We've had a conversation once before. I'm more than happy to have it with you again. Maybe we can have a more extended conversation about why I think you should fuck off, how I think you're being intentionally dishonest for the sake of the grift. I gave you the benefit of the doubt before, but I'm done doing that. You've gone a step too far. So, like I said, if you are watching this and you are not Shapeshifter, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to click the like button if you enjoyed it, subscribe if you want to see more, click the notification bell if you want to be notified when I upload, and my DMs are open for anybody, in fact, who wants to debate me. I get a lot of comments saying that like, oh, whoa, you're wrong about this, and you're wrong about that, and you don't think about this, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Come debate me, dude. My DMs are open. You can find my Twitter in the description. You can find my Discord in the description. You can DM me on either of those. Very easy to reach me. If that's not something you're interested in, well then, thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next video.